The Chargers have officially fired offensive coordinator Greg Roman and also now boast one of the top landing spots for any prospective new offensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, we didn't know if it would happen, but it did. Greg Roman is out as the Chargers OC.
I almost couldn't believe it, but I had to throw out a hallelujah because the Chargers are finally going to have, hopefully, somebody to be brought in to orchestrate this offense the way it needs to be for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had to, because, I mean, we're going to get into exactly why it happened and why, they needed to make a big time change. And also, why doing it now is so important because of how many of these, opportunities could get taken by other head coaching vacancies, right? Like, you had to get all of the candidates available to you. So I think it was huge that they did that right now. And we're also going to talk about why the Chargers are potentially the best landing spot for any prospective OC with everything that they have going for them, from Justin Herbert to the tackles to a young group of weapons, and also just being able to have the most cap space in the NFL going into 2026. So a lot to talk about. Mike Devlin also out. Those were the big two. Those were the two that we said, hey, at the very least, you have to evaluate everyone on the offensive staff after the performance the Chargers had. But those two guys specifically, there was just no argument to bring them back. And I think they made such a good decision to do it, which we know was not easy for Jim Harbaugh. And we had our issues with Greg Roman after year one. We had our issues with Greg Roman before he was hired, right? We took a lot of heat for the Greg Noman episode when the Chargers hired him because, of the relationship with Jim Harbaugh. We're like, man, we really wish they would have went in a younger, more innovative direction, and they didn't. But after that 3-point performance, David, this was the move that had to happen, and I'm so glad that Jim Harbaugh saw that they needed a big change, and then they were able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised, honestly, that this was the move that actually was made, just because obviously we know that Greg Roman is a very close personal friend to Jim Harbaugh and has worked with Jim at multiple different spots and with different teams. So I didn't know if Jim was going to be able to do it, but to his credit, he did do it. And he was able to see that the offensive performances throughout the season were not good enough, regardless of the obvious deficiencies and things that were not present. The offense was not productive enough in the playoffs in either year for the Chargers to be able to do what Jim Harbaugh and what this organization ultimately wants to do, which is win a championship. We have not seen championship level offense from Greg Roman at any point. You were outscored 48-15 in your 2 playoff games with the Chargers, and you couldn't have a good running game. You had issues in the red zone. These were common problems throughout his tenure. So for Coach Harbaugh to be able to acknowledge it and move decisively, I think is something to be applauded.
Yeah, because the thing is, when Jim Harbaugh opened up his opening press conference, when he took this job, he said, like Moses, I'm going to die leaning on my staff, which loyalty is good. And it's something that makes him a desirable person to work for. But at the same time, it had to happen this way. And I think the crazy thing is it kind of feels like this last game might be a little bit like that 63-21 beatdown that ended up getting Brandon Staley fired, right? It needed to be something so atrocious that you had to move in a completely other direction, right? Which they did, going with Jim Harbaugh with the pedigree that he had. But also, it was just going to be almost impossible to have faith in this offense, no matter, even if they look decent in the regular season, which, with the tackles they probably could have, because of what Justin Herbert did to elevate the offense for the entirety of the regular season, which he did, and bailed them out of several games they probably should have lost, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just to be honest, it would have been so hard to buy into it. Now there is hope. There is hope that this is the right fit for Justin Herbert, where he does have a legitimate head coach and a potentially good offensive coordinator to work with, which won't put everything on his back, which will give him some easy buttons, which won't have the spacing issues or just the deep concepts that Greg Roman had. I mean, Greg Roman improved the Chargers running game. It was still two of the worst team seasons that any Greg Roman rushing attacks have ever had. And more importantly, when they needed to run the ball, they couldn't, which was his whole calling card, right? But more importantly than anything like that, listen to what the players said after the game, right? Like, you have players straight up questioning the coaching staff. Like Mekhi Becton, obviously, maybe some sour grapes there. Said he never felt comfortable. But like Trey Harris saying, yeah, we need to work on the quick game. The players saying stuff that we said. But even more embarrassingly than that, you have the other team coming out there and saying they didn't know what we were doing. They were not prepared for us. They had no idea what we had for them. That falls strictly on the offensive coaching staff, and maybe it tells you a little bit why Justin Herbert was struggling to kind of know where to go with the football at times. But this is for Justin Herbert, though. Like, you were heading for a potential Andrew Luck situation without a change here. Like, you had to make a good faith effort to give him someone that will work with him better than Greg Roman had, and also not make him have to scramble and be the second most rushing yards in the NFL at his position just for the offense to be competent, which it was, you know, in some of the games and other times just looked terrible. But the thing is you don't take that many hits if you have a good offensive coordinator. We didn't see the quick game to keep him protected. We didn't see the screen game evolve to keep him protected. Justin Herbert, in that game, the scariest part was like, man, they might break him. They might break Justin Herbert if they keep putting him in the situation that he's in right now. Because, like, it's not crazy to think he could Andrew Luck himself out of the league when you're getting hit at a historic rate like he was. And it looked like in that game he was just timid. He didn't want to turn the ball over. He didn't want to take chances. He was scrambling without kind of keeping his eyes up the field. And there were some opportunities, maybe slightly exaggerated by some people, because the offensive line still gave up, 30 pressures is what the Texans defense was credited with. But they had to do this for Justin Herbert's sake.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, Justin Herbert, the reason why Andrew Luck had to leave is because he was constantly rehabbing. Like, he was getting hurt and constantly having to come back over and over and over again, and being in that mental grind of having to overcome another injury. And we look up and we look at what Justin Herbert has been through. He's been through a series of multiple injuries that he has fought through and played through and has not complained one bit about it. But you got to know, behind closed doors, like, this is a really, really tough year for him. And he got absolutely abused, at pretty much every point in the season. And just because he is a superhuman athlete, he was able to make plays to overcome all of the offensive play calling problems because he's a superhuman talent. But there was not really many games that you could point to where you could say, man, that was something that was a benefit to Justin, that made his life easier, that where he was thrown into big open windows. Like, maybe you can point to the Cowboys game in the second half, but
against a historically bad defense, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. But there really isn't many other other games to be able to point to show that. So the Chargers absolutely had to do this, and I hope for Justin's sake that he has some kind of insight, at least, to be able to contribute to who the next offensive coordinator is going to be, because the fact is he is making $50+ million and he is the face of the franchise. So his input should absolutely be included.
Well, and the thing is, it never really felt like Greg Roman was a Justin Herbert hire, right? Like, the argument was, hey, give Justin Herbert a good running game and then we'll see how good he looks, right? But it would never felt like someone like, okay, this is a fit to elevate Justin Herbert's game. Obviously, he did a lot with Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith and had some good things, but, like, that was so long ago. Like, that offense is outdated. The spacing was terrible. You need a modern offense. And I think the good news about the Chargers doing this kind of expeditiously is that they give themselves the full kind of complement of all of these options. Mike McDaniels and Brian Daboll's, guys that were just fired as head coaches. Now you have everyone to go look for, to be able to sit down and tell you, how do you fix this? Because I guarantee you, there are plenty of coaches out there that say, hey, I can do better with Justin Herbert than what I just saw.
Oh, yeah, and especially, like, you can look at coaches from all across the spectrum, guys that were former head coaches. They can look at the Chargers offense and be like, wow, look at all of these pieces that are in place. Look at the quarterback. Like, I can use this opportunity to spearhead my campaign back to being the head man in charge for an NFL franchise. Like, you have to know that this is one of those opportunities where it's a springboard. If you take it and run with it and execute like you obviously know you can, then you're going to be able to get back into that main seat. So it's a huge opportunity for whoever wants to be the offensive coordinator or whoever gets the chance to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers.
Yeah, and I hope it's a wide search. I hope they do their due diligence because it is so important that they get this right. And it's a, career trajectory altering, Jim Harbaugh's coaching altering type of decision that they're going to make. But we're going to tell you exactly why this is the best place for any prospective offensive coordinator for that job to take, because of Justin Herbert, because of the tackles, because of a young group of weapons, the most salary cap space in the NFL in 2026, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Let's be real, no one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll benefits and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or the hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every week. Knowing that you can reach a certified HR expert anytime also gives you a real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
David, we talked about why it was so important for the Chargers to move on from Greg Roman, and credit to Jim Harbaugh, right? Where he might not have made the right decision to begin with, but at least he wasn't too, stubborn and too hard-headed to admit that he made a mistake there and that they needed to do better. And we both thought Greg Roman wasn't gone. That was the thing. We thought he was safe as soon as they locked up the playoff berth. So that's why I think that game truly could, be a silver lining moment, because I don't think that team was going to win a Super Bowl anyway. So I think that puts it in perspective a little bit. But I truly do think that the Chargers have an argument to say they are the most desirable offensive coordinator opening in the NFL right now, especially for someone who is trying to make that next step and go be a head coach, the next year or after a couple of successful seasons. Hopefully stick around if it's going well. But I would say also it starts with Justin Herbert having the quarterback situation out, and you have the tackle situation out, figured out. So obviously we'll see what happens with Rashawn Slater. I'm going to assume, he said he's ahead of schedule already. I'm going to assume he can get back to close to what he was beforehand. So you have your quarterback situation figured out and your tackles figured out. Just that is something that not a lot of teams can say, which is one of the main key points that I'd say, hey, this is a great job to take.
Yeah, I mean, look around the NFL. Look how many job openings there are. Look how many teams that are trying to figure things out from a entire franchise perspective. And the Chargers, they have a lot to work with. And yeah, they have a couple things they need to fix, but from the offensive perspective, you have the most important position figured out with the quarterback. Justin Herbert is one of the elite players in the league at the position. And Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, when on the football field, are absolutely lockdown dominant tackles, two of the best at their position. Obviously, we don't know what Rashawn Slater is going to look like, and we also found out after the season that Joe Alt destroyed his ankle. Yeah. And so they had a lot of different things in there that had to get repaired and fixed.
He's never coming back for the playoff run.
Yeah, there was absolutely no way that was happening, and that's why the Chargers said absolutely nothing about the potential of him being a guy to return. It just was never going to happen. But hopefully these guys are able to come back as close to 100% as they possibly can, or at 100%, and be the players that we all know that they are. And if they can even do 85-90% of that, they are still among the top tackles in the league. So to have that in place, to have the quarterback in place, absolutely. If I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm saying definitely give me that job.
Yeah, hitch my ride to that wagon for sure. Because, I mean, like I said, if you don't think every, prospective offensive coordinator in the league didn't look at what the Chargers did in that playoff game and said, I could do more with Justin Herbert, you're just wrong. And I think the other part of it is the Chargers do have like an exciting, interesting young group of weapons. I mean, starting with Ladd McConkey, but you also have Rondé Gatz in the second. You have Quentin Johnston going in the last year of his deal. It still feels like we haven't seen him truly utilized in the way that seems obvious that he works best, which is in yards after the catch situations.
Yeah.
And you also have Amarion Hampton, who I think showed promise, even if in limited snaps, right, after being healthy pretty much the entirety of his college career. So I do think that that's the other thing, is you have a group of weapons who are all really cheap and young, and also, is something to sell to that next offensive coordinator.
Yeah, all guys that have a lot of really good skills that you can use and that you have under contract for multiple seasons to be able to work with, really get into your offense, find their roles, be able to define them, and be able to put them in positions to have success. Because you have guys that can really spearhead an offense. Ladd McConkey is a guy that should be at the focal point of the passing attack pretty much in any situation. He's one of the best receivers in the league. We didn't really get to see that version of Ladd this year. I think the play calling was a part of that. We need to have somebody that can put him in the right positions. Rondé Gatson showed some incredible things in his rookie year and has a very, very bright future. Same thing with Trey Harris. I think if you're an offensive coordinator from a skill position group, you're like, man, I got a lot to work with here. I have a talented running back. I have some really good receivers. I have a young tight end that I can really continue to develop and really kind of, really kind of elevate into that next level, because he's already one of the better pass catching tight ends in the league. Just look at the stats. It is a great situation from a weapons perspective. You know that there's just one major issue that you have to fix.
It is. And like, even Ladd McConkey's quotes after the game, like, if anyone was, over the Greg Roman experience, it was him. And, credit to Greg Roman for using him so well, maybe out of desperation a little bit as a rookie. But like, you see, the quotes where he's saying from Chris Brim, I want to be able to impact the game. I want to be able to make plays. I want to be able to get this offense going. I want the ball in my hands. I want to go make plays. And at times we weren't able to make that happen. Like, and he's right. There's no reason that Ladd McConkey shouldn't have led this team in targets so far this year. Even if he mildly regressed, he was still the best option they had at that position. And every single game, it felt like he was underutilized. And talking about underutilized, what happened to Rondé Gatson down the stretch? Like, completely phased out of the offense. Like, you don't have any way to scheme up a Rondé Gatson the second, who had one of the best 4-game stretches that any tight end has ever put up, let alone a rookie tight end.
Yeah,
like,
you saw that and was like, let's just not use him anymore.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense, man. Like, they had something to work with. There was ways they could have evolved this offense. But I think like the biggest thing is you also have the most salary cap space in the league in 2026. Per over the cap, the Chargers are projected to have $103 million in 2026 salary cap space. And I think also you combine that with the fact that Joe Ortiz, even with his flaws, has shown that he fully trusts his coaches and he will trust them to help him make free agent additions, which has worked out really good on the defensive side with guys like, Christian Fulton and Dante Jackson and, all of these guys. Tier Tart for sure, Poona Ford as well. On the offensive side, it's been guys like, Bradley Bozeman and Hayden Hurst and Gus Edwards, all who had Greg Roman ties, right? Like, all those guys had Greg Roman ties. You can't tell me that he wasn't a big reason those guys were brought in. Now,
for sure.
J.K. Dobbins was a good signing for sure, but like there was just so many more on the bad side of things. And I think that the other part of it is you can free up another $13 million by releasing Bradley Bozeman and Mekhi Becton potentially, which a new offensive coordinator might be in favor of.
Yeah, and even on the defensive side, you can cut Bud Dupree too. Like there's plenty of other options there to be able to provide some more cap space, even though that's really not going to be a problem. But the Chargers have to rework the entirety of the interior of their offensive line. It has to be done. The Chargers have to go out there and solidify that part of their offense. It's just a huge thing. But yeah, the offensive coordinator is going to have carte blanche as far as who do I need, what do I need to be able to operate my offense to the peak effectiveness, money is really not going to be an object.
No, it shouldn't be. And it's just another kind of feather in the cap of what the Chargers situation is, which to me is one of the most desirable offensive coordinator positions in the league. Going back to also the point where it's like, unlike if you're under an Andy Reid or a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan, you come here and your offense balls out, you get all the credit, right? Like that is a huge thing. You want a head coaching job, you're going to get the credit for what this offense is, because Jim Harbaugh, even as a former quarterback, is not known as an NFL play caller or an offensive guru of any kind, right? So like you do it here, you get the credit for it. But it wasn't the only big move the Chargers made, because the Chargers also decided to move on from offensive line coach Mike Devlin, but decided to keep Nick Hardwick a little bit questionably. So we're going to talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I only wish I could have introduced Greg Roman to Quo in time to potentially save his job and save the Chargers offense, but I wasn't able to. But I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works right from your phone or computer, so you can even have your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight the next steps. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering free, fresh portioned, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users over other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. And this is no fast food service, right? Greg Roman very against that, so he'd be a big fan of this as well. But you got over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are as simple, but they feel elevated, even restaurant quality, and everything arrives pre-portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. David, we only got into part of the big news of the day because Greg Roman is obviously the headliner, but there was another name that we had an issue with potentially staying in 2026. And that was Chargers offensive line coach Mike Devlin. And like Greg Roman, you know, maybe saw the writing on the wall in one of those later press conferences where he was talking about, you know, when Joe Alt went down or Rashawn Slater went down, I woke up an hour earlier and woke up at 3:30, and then Joe Alt, and then I woke up at 2:30. Mike Devlin obviously has a case to be like, man, I lost these two guys, right? Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. It's hard to judge an offensive line coach specifically when you're missing those two guys. And like, let's get this cleared out. I don't root for any man to lose their job, and I'm not trying to glorify anyone losing their job, but a job is a job, right? Like, and if you're not doing your job well enough, this is what happens. And you get paid a good enough money to accept those consequences for your action, especially if you're not doing a good enough job, which is straight up just the fact of what these two men weren't being able to do, right? Mike Devlin, though, I understand missing those two guys. The problem is Justin Herbert was hit 129 times, the most in the NFL by far this season, and the second most that anyone's been hit at the quarterback position over the last 20 seasons. Like, more than that, David, the simple protection breakdowns absolutely just drove me insane. Like, we're 2 full years into this system now, and we have guys that aren't able to pick up stunts, right? Like simple stunts. And I know you're playing musical chairs. That the offensive line that you played in that playoff game had 2 weeks off, right? Like, and it was the same group. You knew who it was going to be. And they still struggled to pick up the simplest of blitzes, the simplest of stunts and things like that. Like, no matter what you say about the offensive line and how much the injuries impacted them, which is a huge amount, they were not getting enough out of the guys they still had out there. And it was blatantly obvious. And this is a move that absolutely had to happen.
They couldn't run block at all. One of the worst in the league, if not the worst in the league. They couldn't pass block at all. So you're telling me you couldn't do anything, like anything, as it pertained to playing offensive line or coaching offensive line or getting quality output out of the offensive line at any point throughout this season. No matter what the deficiencies, could not provide any kind of coaching at any point throughout this tenure to be able to get protection for your quarterback or open up lanes for your running backs consistently. It just didn't happen. And yes, the free rushers were infuriating because it just can't happen that many times this far into things and not have things happen as a result. The Chargers had to make these moves, and it felt like from the beginning they weren't the right hires, and we know now that they definitely weren't.
This is the thing. Like, no matter where you looked, it was, like, to your point. You said they were one of the worst one. I mean, I can put the numbers to that for you. I mean, they're a team that in pass block win rate, according to ESPN's pass block win rate, they were 32nd. Their run block win rate, they were 31st. Last. That means they were second to last.
Yeah, that's second to last.
The opposite on PFF, only a little bit, because the Chargers were the 31st graded pass blocking unit and the 32nd ranked run blocking unit. Like, you just can't have the worst of everything and think that that's okay or that you're doing enough, especially when you have a $250 million investment standing behind those guys. And, like, I get it. I saw Bradley Bozeman's, tear jerking, reaction in the press the post game locker room or the day after. And, like, I get it, and he could be the best dude, and I like Bradley Bozeman. We've had him on the show before, but, like, yeah, if you're going into a room that's telling you what you were doing and they were doing was good enough, like, that's not the right direction that this team needs to be going in, especially from their offensive line coaches. So it had to be better. And this was the kind of interesting part because the Chargers did decide, according to Ian Rappaport, that they're going to keep Nick Hardwick, which is like, that's a tough one for me because, like, Nick Hardwick, my favorite center of all time, Corey Linsley might have been that had he played a little bit longer, but, like, arguably the best center that this team's ever had because of, how long he played and being part of one of the most successful eras of Chargers football. At the same time, David, like, if I'm going to put all these things on Mike Devlin and you have an assistant coach in Nick Hardwick, like, how can I fully absolve that? And I can't, right? Because, like, if Nick Hardwick should come back based on the Chargers center play, which should be his expertise, it's really hard to advocate for it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that perspective of it, but also knowing Jim Harbaugh not only wants to be a developer of players, he wants to be a developer of coaches. And the big difference between Mike Devlin and Nick Hardwick is Mike Devlin's been coaching in the NFL for like 30 years. This is not new. This is not something that is, like a brand new venture like it is for Nick Hardwick. Nick Hardwick is a new coach. He's still learning, still trying to probably figure out how he's going to be that head coach or that coach that he wants to be. So I think this is just part of Jim Harbaugh wanting to continue that Jim Harbaugh coaching tree.
Sure, and I understand that. Like I said, I like Nick Hardwick. And I think the thing is like, I don't have a problem with him still being an assistant, right? Because he's not the main guy. Get an experienced guy
right
for him to learn under, right, and go from there. And so that part I don't, have any problem with. And, like, also, we're judging all of Nick Hardwick's coaching based on the play of Bradley Bozeman, and it could just be not to be messed up at all. Like, the Bradley Bozeman wasn't very good. You know what I mean? So, like, it's hard to put that all on Nick Hardwick as well. But I will say that, like, the biggest priority for Nick Hardwick is to get this next center, whoever that is, because it's hard for me to believe with no Greg Roman that it's going to be Bradley Bozeman in 2026, to be able to set the protections and to be able to just clear up all of the miscommunications and just free rushers that we've been seeing. So, like, that, if that's not priority number one, I don't know what to tell you. But that only will get you so far. Like, the coaching has to improve. They need a new offensive line coach. They need a great offensive line coach, right? Because Justin Herbert and Phillip Rivers, neither of them had very many good offensive lines in the totality of their careers. But more than that, you need better players, right? So, like, coaches is great. the Chargers have to invest major resources into the interior of this offensive line this season, because they told us last year 11 wins. It's pretty good, right, Pop? That has to go. And I hope that comment specifically is what makes Joe Ortiz decide, okay, well, we're not letting this happen again. They absolutely cannot.
Yeah, because it's not good enough, and you know it's not good enough now. I mean, you might have had the mirage after last season that it was going to be okay because of your tackles, but now you know. Like, you take those guys off the board, and you see how bad that interior truly is, because there's nobody to hide them. There's nobody to shield them away. It's all being put on a humongous microscope, and it's being magnified for everybody to see it. So now you know you have to spend the money. You have it. There's absolutely no excuse. Obviously, everyone out there is saying Tyler Linderbaum. That's a no-brainer. If he gets there, the Chargers have to cut the check. I mean, to have a guy who's already a plug-and-play, one of the top elite centers in the NFL, it's an easy decision. So if it gets there, I think that's an automatic one. But it's not just that. You have to get better guard play as well. You also have to have better depth as well. The Chargers need to spend the resources. I don't really care about being prudent at this time. Like, it's time to be intentional, and it's time to spend the money. Go protect your quarterback, because if not, you might not have him for much longer.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and you have to aggressively do it to show him. And like, obviously you have to trust that you're going to make the right decisions there. And in free agency, we haven't seen that, but a lot of it's been penny pinching, right? The biggest contract really they have given out is to, as far as non-extension, not bringing a guy back, is Mekhi Becton. And obviously that worked out awfully. And that, might be a Mekhi Becton thing. But obviously there's been so many more issues than just him, where it's hard to put that all on him either. I think the big thing is the Chargers have had, 13, 14 draft picks, maybe 15, 16 draft picks over the last couple of years. And the only one they've spent on an interior offensive lineman is one, and it was Branson Taylor in the 6th round. Like, the investment has to be better than that. It has to be in the draft and in free agency. And I do think that with, the Chargers only having 5 picks, I think it's a huge move back for them, right? And I'm sure at 22 you might be able to see them potentially move back to the end of the 1st round, maybe into the 2nd round, to try to accumulate more picks, and you trust Joe Ortiz later on to be able to find some value
for sure.
But yeah, Tyler Linderbaum for sure, if he's available, do whatever it takes. Obviously, it's not the Ravens connection that it once was with Greg Roman, and also the other thing is like, to this next potential coach, like, the cool thing is just rebuild the entirety of the interior offensive line and how the new coach wants things done in the middle. So you actually, have a new perspective on it and know exactly kind of what you'll be needing when you hire this new offensive coordinator and this new offensive line coach. But major resources have to be spent to get it done. Thank you guys for checking out tonight's emergency live show. A great reason to do a live show, to make sure you never miss the show. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. But tomorrow, we're going to go a deeper dive into the potential offensive coordinator candidates that are out there. There are several, good articles. Popper put one out there as far as, potential guys. So tomorrow, when we have a little more time, we'll dig a little deeper into who our favorite offensive coordinator choices are for this Chargers team, in a hugely crucial decision that has to be made. But to make sure you don't miss it, you can also find the show every day on all of our social media and chime in on what you think about the Chargers decisions. And on today's show, at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, or get your thoughts in, call into the Locked On Chargers voicemail line at 323-524-7924. We were going to do a buy or sell show yesterday. I was obviously very sick. We're still planning on doing it, but obviously this has to take the reins now, because the Chargers, we get to go offensive coordinator shopping now, and that is a very, very exciting thing to say. So make sure you guys are back here tomorrow when we get into our favorite candidates and why, digging a little deeper into the options that are out there right now. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.